You know, uh, you know how the wifey does with honey-do list. So,
Oh, yeah.
oh
Yeah. You'll be busy, but
yes,
be busy
yes,
on your own terms, right?
on
So,
my own terms and kind of just being lazy when I want to do it.
yes.
I know how to put off now. I know how to say, I'll get it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
I'm gonna give you some advice as somebody who's been married for soon to be 40 years
Whew.
to the same woman too, by the way, if you can believe that. That's not the right attitude to take. Um, so recently I was at the warehouse store and I was buying cases of Fiji water. You know what Fiji water is? You ever seen Fiji water?
The
Yes, sir.
expensive water.
Yeah, very.
Exactly.
It's like 10 times the price of just regular distilled water. And so, when you go to the warehouse store, when you check out, you have to go through the little security and they take your bill and they check the number of items you got. And the fella, he wasn't quite as old as me, but he wasn't no spring chicken. But anyway, he says, "Is that water really worth that much?" And I said, "My wife believes it is." And he said, "Oh, I get you." I said, "Now, here's the thing at my age, I wouldn't mind losing half my stuff. I just don't want to have to move the other half." And so, my advice to you is, you know, you don't want to lose half your stuff and you don't want to have to move the other half. You seen what moving costs lately? So I wouldn't be shining my wife on. I believe whatever she said, I'd say yes, ma'am. I've learned that's 40 years of marriage
Smart
advice.
man, a smart man.
I'm going on year 19, and I've learned to say yes, ma'am.
That's right. But none of that. Yeah, I'll do it later. No, I'll just
I'm a
drop
man.
whatever I'm doing right now.
Man,
Just
I
hope it ain't
you
catching up
learn to
that
say
breaks my
yes,
foot when it
mama.
lands on it. But I'm gonna do it right now. That is the way the world works. All right, it's time for us to get started. And Dr. Griffin Jordan is leading us tonight, and so I got a couple of housekeeping things before, so I better get started. So let me share my screen. It'll share here. I am recording. Everything is good. All right, so competency folio artifacts from the six evidences. And so this semester we're doing the OMA and we're doing the skip. And so I was asked earlier this week, is it okay to start working on your competency folio? Absolutely. I told you we'd talk about this week. So over the break, you've got two assignments over the break. Is one, get your next case study ready. Remember, we don't have class next week. And so you need to get in your collaborative groups. This is your 2 week warning because in 2 weeks your last case study is due. And I told you now it's a bear. You can see there's a lot of moving parts to it. So, and also during the break, if you want to, you can work on your artifacts for your competency folio. So when you did the OMA, here are the kind of artifacts that would have been generated, and here are the things from the skip that would have been generated. That if you did some work with those, then you should have an artifact of you working with those. Now these are in our shell under competency folio materials right there on the menu. Let me stop my share and show you. Well, I'll be able to, let me get out of this so I can show you that. Let me do that. Let me close some of this stuff right here. Now it says it's not found for the open-ended, but I'll fix that later. It'll probably come back. But right here where it says MSA handbooks and competency folio, you can see the artifacts from the evidences are right here. And then there's another one that says open-ended. So if you've done any of these activities, if you've addressed a large or small group of adults and you've got an artifact, that would fit under dialogue, inquiry, or communication. I've got those. And so if you've done your clinical work, you will have artifacts from those. Now, the last thing on that is, what is an artifact? An artifact's a thing. It's not a written narrative. It's a thing that shows. It could be an agenda. It could be minutes. I love pictures, screenshots. Everybody carries a camera around with them now. If you got a picture of you doing something, just like here, I say I have to save all this stuff for my own evaluation. And so, um, one of the things that I do, if I can find it, Here we go. In my gallery, I better not show anything bad here. I don't think I've got anything bad. But, you know, just like that. That's a picture of me and one of my doctoral students. That's an artifact. So when I say I led this many dissertations or whatever, they don't want to read the dissertation, but it's nice to have a snapshot. That's an artifact of me, and that's me and Winter. Winter was with me for 10 years through the master's program and the doctoral program. She's down in Goldsboro. She's principal down there. She's a wonderful lady. And here are other things. I mean, I won't get too down in the weeds, but if you win something, you get a plaque, that's an artifact. See how that works. Those kinds of things. And so when you're asked to prove the things that you did, I mean, everybody, when they do evaluation, it's based on that. You write out, this is the things that I did. Here's the awards I won. Here are the things that I was involved in. Here are the students that I directed their dissertation and those things. But if you've got pictures, that they want to see artifacts, they want to see proof. That's what we're talking about. So if you went to a school improvement team meeting, if they've got minutes that you were there, that would be a great artifact. Just if you don't have the actual document, take a picture of it with your phone. And that's what you upload in your competency folio. Don't get hung up on documents. We got evidences. So make sure, and I'm gonna walk you in, make sure everybody remembers how to get to their competency folio. Simply sign into TaskStream. And that's taskstream.com if you don't remember how. Make sure you do the sign in right up here. Remember, we're going to TaskStream. And when you get in, when you sign in, it should be saved in your computer. Just remember, here's the only trick. Do not go into your DRF portfolio where you upload your evidence. Just come up here to folios and web pages. Click on that, and there will be your competency folio. And when you go into your competency folio, it has, all right, that one's already been submitted. All right, so when you go in, it has all the different areas, and remember, we've got them categorized. And so under communication, one from the app cell and the SOP, or one open-ended. So you wouldn't put one in from the OMA or the SCIP, but if you've got a good open-ended one on communication, and again, I've got them on that list of things. Look through the list. Oh, I did that. That could be a good communication. So let's see one down here. See, there's one from last semester, AppTel. Okay, right here, responsiveness, OMA and SCIP. So you could have a couple there, but again, simply make sure if it's a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, use the attachment button. If it's a PowerPoint or a Prezi, use the slideshow button to upload it. And if it's a PDF file or a picture, which is a JPEG, or a screenshot, which is a PNG, you use text and image. That's really the only place that you can go wrong on that is if you try to use the wrong button to upload, it won't do it. Again, if you have a PDF of some sort, a JPEG, which is a picture, or a PNG, which is a screenshot, use text and image. If you have a PowerPoint or a Prezi or some other Google Slides, use slideshow. And if you have a Excel or a Word document, use attachment. And you just upload those. And again, you can put a brief description on them. You don't have to tell us a lot, or you can just upload the artifact. Brief description always helps. And also, if one of them's digital, you ought to make sure you highlight that this is a digital competency. Like that email from your principal last semester allowing you to form your PLC, that was a digital competency for communication. So make sure that you can go ahead from your, as you're winding down your SCIP, in 2 weeks when we meet, I've already talked you through the CAP. We'll do that again. But hopefully by the time that Easter break is over, you will have got started on your folio, or at least, see where you are. You will have done your last case study, and the rest of the time we'll focus on the CAP and competency folio if you have questions. But this is just a reminder But those are the things that we'll be working on after the break. Again, next week is the break. So tonight, Dr. Griffin Jordan is leading us again tonight. So I'm going to give her the balance of the time for her presentation this evening. Dr. Griffin Jordan, thank you for being with us.
Dr. Lamb, one question real quick. With the conferences, if it's a minimum of the 3 they suggest, or some of them I'm gonna be, some of them I'll be done with it. I have 3 of them in there. Do I just do the 3 they suggest, or do I?
If I just keep on putting them in.
Okay.
The best thing about this is I'm telling you, you know, our folks get jobs more than any other group in North or South Carolina, and there's a reason why. The employers love this competency folio. They love to see what you've done during your clinical. I mean, you can talk all day, but showing them means more than talking to them. And there's a reason why our folks get jobs so easily, because they know the preparation you've been through, but they also can see what you did in your clinical if it looks like something that they'd be interested in. So yes, you only need 3, but if you got more stuff that would fit, we love to see it. I got one today. I bet she, you know, the minimum is 63. I bet she had 163 in hers. And it told the story. It really told the story of what she did during her clinical. I mean, it showed it. I mean, and you visually know that she just didn't write stuff down on her internship log. She was out there working. You know, based on what I saw in that, I'd hire her today. It was very impressive. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to impress somebody to give us a job. You know, that's what we're trying to do. That's what this folio is all about. It's just another level of, hey, you know, I know what I'm doing here. Give me an opportunity. I can help you in your school and the kids here. So you can't put too many, but if you just have 3, move on. Good question. All right. Dr. Griffin Jordan, what we talking about tonight?
We are talking about facilities. We're talking about managing school facilities. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can. I'm trying to move the pictures around so we can see it
Yes.
a little better. Yes, ma'am, we can.
Because my computer's going through, my laptop is going through something, I believe, I don't know if it's been compromised, but every now and then I get this, you need to save your computer from viruses, and it pops up and it doesn't go away. So
no, you'll have to go into your programs, and it's probably attached itself. Hopefully you can see it in your programs where you can delete it. If you can't, you'll have to have somebody debug it. You'll have to take it to your local PC shop. It's usually malware, but what you can do is go to your settings and go to programs that you've uploaded. And if it's there, you can delete it.
Yes, I'm gonna try that, and then I'm gonna take it to my IT person at school, because this is my work computer. So we're gonna hope they can get it done. But I have 2 monitors. So if you see me kind of looking up, I'm not looking in the sky. I have another monitor just in case it pops up that I'm using. Okay. I always have a backup plan. All right, so managing school facilities. This evening, we're going to talk about facilities management. And of course, if you're like me, initially, when I hear facilities management, before I really got in the game of managing a school and being a school leader, I thought facilities management was just managing the facility, like making sure your lights are working, making sure the stairs are not falling apart, but just more of the physical aspect. As I've gotten into the role of being a school leader, I realized that facilities management is managing everything, your educational component within your facility, your financial foundation, your brick and mortar, of course, your exterior foundation. It is everything, the physical, education, and financial component of your school, and the day-to-day, both your day-to-day functions, as well as your long-term planning and management. That is facilities management as we look at it in schools. So how do you plan for your facilities maintenance and upkeep. This is a little diagram here. And as you can see, there are many subcomponents that must be considered when you are managing your school program and your facilities. For one, your stakeholder needs and your stakeholder vision, your occupant health and safety, implementation and evaluation, your capital planning, training and managing staff, and learning environment. So along the sides, I have put in different little blocks of information for you to see. A lot of acronyms. So I want you to understand, because all these acronyms that you see here, you're going to see again. You're going to know them as part, it's going to be a second language. Okay, so we have your culture, your rigor, your technology, and your scheduling. All that is your learning environment. The learning environment, the culture of your building, your facilities, the rigor of your curriculum. Is technology used throughout your facilities and easily accessible? And then how are you scheduling your school, your master schedule, your bell schedule? Do you have multiple bell schedules? How are you planning all of that? That is facilities planning. Under that, you have teacher working conditions, TWC, you'll see that, your survey for TLC, and you're also your school improvement team. That's the SIT or the SIT. You'll also hear that. The school improvement program is SIP. School improvement team is SIT. So when you're looking at these are your stakeholders' needs and visions. So you're looking at what is needed. What do your teachers need? Your school improvement team should be made up of teachers, students, parents, other staff members, community members. That is your school improvement team. It looks at your entire school community. Those are your stakeholders, part of your planning and your facilities planning. Curriculum and instruction, you'll see C&I, that's curriculum instruction. North Carolina Educator Effectiveness System, that is where you're rated here in North Carolina. It's called NECES. That is where you get your observations rated and you sit down and have your pre and post conference. That's where your PDP goals are located, your self-assessment, your peer observations, all of that is located in NECES. And then of course you have your North Carolina report card. Those are ways that you evaluate your progress within your facility. And then also implementation, curriculum instruction, that helps you to decide and plan out the implementation of your educational program. So on the red side, on the right, you have renovations and updates. So of course, this is going to be your capital planning. When you think about capital planning, sometimes you're like, this is when you build new things. Of course, that's when you have new buildings, additions, when you're tearing things down and building something new. But it's also the renovations within your existing facility. So if the gym is leaking water terribly, then those will be renovations that are needed. Updates to your facilities. All of that is capital planning. Professional development, this is PD. And your professional learning communities, that's PLC, which every school should have. This is the training and managing of staff. So you're training them. You make sure that your staff is getting the professional development that they need. And you make sure that you're managing your staff through your professional learning communities. And then finally, you have critical incident response team, that's called the CERT team, and safe schools training. We have to do that every year. That is different things from biohazard acknowledgement, harassment, bullying, all those trainings that you must do or complete each year. That's your safe schools training. And that is to ensure that your occupants in your school maintain a health and safety environment. Any questions about all the things that you have to consider when you're looking at your facilities management. So as you see, it's much more than just the physical component, making sure that your facilities are operable. Okay. All right, where to find information? If you're looking for information about facilities planning, facilities management, there's a wealth of information. I just listed 4 here. Of course, your LEA, which is your local education, a Board of Education Policies, BOE is Board of Education. So you have your local education agency, Board of Education Policy Manual. That is LEA BOE Policy Manual. That will have all of your do's and don'ts regarding your facilities management. Of course, I mentioned North Carolina Report Card is a way to look at the state of North Carolina as a whole. Then you can compare districts. You can look at your district. And then from your district, you can break it down to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. Then you can break it down further into your specific school to see varying components from your attendance rate, how many computers or books per student, how your teachers have earned degrees, different things like that are in your North Carolina report card. Of course, you have your teacher working condition survey. It talks about your facilities and how teachers perceive your facilities to be, if they are receiving the support they need and the instructional components, as well as the support they need within the school as far as supplies. And then you have your North Carolina DPI. This is something that I've referenced often. This is the North Carolina Public School Budget. It's an information analysis guide, and it talks about everything. It talks about all of the different counties within the state of North Carolina, and it kind of compares who gets what and why regarding their school budget, federal, state, local. It talks about everything per LEA or per district. So that is a very valuable piece of information as well. Okay, so the policies, procedures, and processes, you need to know them. You need to know as far as funding, especially, what comes from federal? Where do you get money from? So as far as your federal funds, you're looking at Title I, your Title I grants, your Part B, which is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Your Part B grants are under the Individuals with Disabilities Act, which is called IDEA. Also ESSER. My district is currently finishing up our ESSER funds. We had a couple of years where there were many new counselors hired. There were many instructional support personnel hired. And we know this year it is coming to an end. The monies are depleted, and it's probably happening to many school districts. Of course, all the principals are going to advocate to keep who we have because we need them tremendously. But with the same token, we know that the money's not there. We knew, they told us over and over again at the beginning, this is temporary, make sure you have a plan when this money runs out. So we're going through that now, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but that was federal. The federal government gave states these funds from COVID, and the states then took those funds and dispersed it through each of the districts within the state. So my district got our share, and that came from the federal down to the state. Okay, so state funds, this is where you're looking at like your career and technical education program, CTE. My school is a CTE school. We get funding from CTE that some other schools or some other districts don't receive. We are called a cooperative innovative high school. So we have a separate pot of money through the CTE program. Other state programs may include like if you have a specific pre-K allotment from the state. I know North Carolina is trying to ramp up pre-K here in the state. Local, moving to local, this is your LEA budget. This comes from your county commissioners, possibly. This comes from your bonds and referendums, taxpayers. This is where your taxpayers kind of help you out with the funds that you're receiving for your school district. And then you have your school-based budgets. Your school probably has a checking account. That money stays, it doesn't disappear at the end of the year. You have a good bookkeeper, monitor that checking account. Other school funds include maybe your PTSA. You have to monitor that. You have fundraising, and we will talk about fundraising. You have to monitor that. Boosters, if you have athletic boosters, if you have band boosters, you have to monitor all these funds. And then you have funding that you may receive in your school budget from like national organizations like HOSA, FBLA, National Honor Society. Those are their separate organizations, but their money is a line item within your school budget. So now a lot of these that I'm talking about now, when you're getting to the school budget, even though it's in your school budget, you need to be mindful that you cannot just spend that money freely. If students are paying $50 or whatever for the National Honor Society, it goes to the school in the school budget, but then that's the money that the National Honor Society uses for the needs of that particular organization. So yes, you're over the school budget as a whole, but you need to respect the fact that those line items are to be spent for those specific entities. Boosters, athletic boosters, band boosters and such, they're raising money, but you've got to understand that they're raising money. You should know about it. You should know what is spent, what is brought in, but that those monies are for the boosters. And the same with like our HOSA. We have our Health Occupations Club or organization. They raise tons of money and through fundraising, but mostly through their charter payments that the students have to make to be a member. And they go to competitions and they take buses to competitions. They're raising that money so that they can have the money for the needs that they have within their organization. So keep that in mind.
Dr. Griffin Jordan, before we go any further, I want to take a second here to elaborate on a couple of these items because they're in their weekly activities.
Yes.
First of all, federal funds, make sure you understand that's EC 504. Those are included in that. Now, traditional CTE, if you're not an innovative grant school, if you have traditional CTE like carpentry or electrical, that kind of stuff is federal. Second language programs are federal, and academically gifted is federal. All those are federal programs. You get monies from them, and they are very specific, as Dr. Griffin Jordan said, they got to be spent only on them. Even though the feds send the money, it can only be spent on them. Now, on state funds, that's mostly per pupil. That's that allotment. When we talked about Leandro, 85% of that is that per pupil allotment that comes from state. There's some other little funds that come along, but not too much. Most of it, and majority of that's for salaries, teacher salaries. Make sure you understand that they don't send you a check, and they do it 10 monthly payments, and it comes to your district, but it's to pay teacher salaries. The money from the state that comes to the school is hardly anything anymore. There used to be staff development money. There used to be office supply money. There used to be, although that is no longer. Now the most state money is just for salaries. District money, be sure to understand when you pay your local property taxes or when businesses pay their business taxes to the state or to the local, the county assessment, like in Mecklenburg County, my primary, or where I'm in Rutherford County, my property tax assessment is what goes to pay for the local school budget. And most of that is facilities. Again, the wealthier places can buy teachers with it. The poorer places, all that, remember, it's the responsibility of the county that you're in to keep the schools up. And so that's where that money goes. And so, no, you don't have a big budget that you can spend on educational things. It goes to the county to pay for the buildings. So remember that. But again, district money from property taxes comes from homeowners and businesses, unless there's a special assessment in the 14 city districts. And then school based, the point that she made, absolutely. I wish she was, I wish she was standing on her chair when she yelled it to you. I don't care who in your building raises money. If it's a PTA, you are responsible for it, period. It's got to be reflected in your local budget, and all the rules of accounting that apply to you apply to them. That means money can't be held in a desk, got to be turned in every night, it's got to be receipted. Just like at the gate of your ball game, you've got to do a reconciliation with the tickets sold and the money. They got to do the same thing. And you think, well, I'll just delegate this to the PTA and I won't have to worry about fundraising. Oh no, you're still responsible, and they'll get you for failure to maintain fiscal control if the money is absconded with, or if people buy stuff and it doesn't get delivered, that will be on you. So don't think that you can say, well, I'll put the athletic director or the booster club in front, in charge of this, or I'll let the PTA raise. Yeah, you can let them you can delegate the work, but not the responsibility. Always remember that. You've got to make sure you know what's going on with them, because you will be held accountable. Thank you, Dr. Griffin, Jordan.
Very good points. All the good points he made. And of course,
quick question.
Yes.
Just wondering, like for supplements, what would the supplements be under? Or like the bonuses for teachers? Which one would that come under? Would that be under
that's the district?
State?
That's the
District. Okay.
That's local wealth. That's why in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, teachers get 3/4 of their salary over the summer. So they get a month and a half pay over those 2 months. If you're in Rutherford County, where I'm sitting tonight, you get 0. You get no local supplement or bonus. That's completely up to local wealth. That's, again, goes back to Leandro case. Not only can the wealthier districts hire local teachers and reduce their class size, they can also afford to pay bonuses and stipends and summer bonuses, or what do we call those in the summertime? Your summer, whatever that is when they pay you. But now the poor districts can't do that. But again, that's all local from your tax revenue. So if you live in a high wealth district, they can buy you extra teachers. I had plenty of extra teachers when I was in Charlotte. Didn't have any when I was in Burke or Rutherford when I was principal there. We did not have a supplement system in Burke or Rutherford for the summer. You better get your check spread over 12 months if you want to pay day in the summertime rather than 10. And this ain't no IQ test. I used to have to tell beginning teachers that. This is not an IQ test. If they spread your salary over 12, you get less every month. In Charlotte, you don't have to do that. You can get it in 10 and you can get by in the summer, because they give you 1.5 paychecks in the summertime. And if you're in certain areas in Charlotte, like a chemistry or physics teacher, you get full pay during the summer. They even do that for high need areas. They just pay them right on in the summer. They get 2 months checks in the summer rather than 1. So it matters where you live, and where you work. But again, that's local tax base again, which is property tax for homeowners and business property taxes for business owners. That's where the local revenue comes from for your district. Remember, school boards are unempowered. They don't levy taxes. County commissioners do. So the school board takes their proposed budget to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners have to fund that with tax dollars. All righty.
All right. So we're looking at fundraising. This is something that could be really sticky. So just be mindful of several things, and here are 4 for us to consider. Try your best to not compete with local businesses, because they are the ones that should be supporting you. You should be working in alliance with your local businesses. So for instance, if you have a club, I don't know, if you have an auto mechanics, your trade school, and you do auto mechanic work, and you have students, or if you do cosmetology or something, and you're trying to get your students trained, of course. And I know of a couple of cosmetology schools, they'll do your relaxer and do your braids and everything for like $20. But then you have the local economy that you have to think about, because they're trying to make money. So they're charging their regular, $90, $150 to do the same thing that your students are giving them for $20. Eventually, there could be some type of issue and friction within you and your local businesses. So just keep that in mind if you are in that type of school where you have auto mechanics or cosmetology or carpentry or anything like that. You need to be able to work with your businesses and have them to support you. Also, and it's not here, but it kind of fits in this, the county commissioners, if you're asking them for funding, don't go and raise money for that funding. So if you're asking them, okay, we need $50,000 to renovate our gym, and you're asking them for $50,000, $60,000, and then you start publicizing this huge fundraiser to fix your gym. Okay, that's a discrepancy. The county commissioners are going to be like, well, if you got it, you got it. You don't need us. So make sure that whatever you're working with the county commissioners and your local businesses, make sure that you're not competing with them. And also within the schools, child nutrition. We have a rule in our district that during lunch, you can't bring in outside food from McDonald's and sit right in front of where the cafeteria lady's sweating and cooking food. You're going to sit right in front of her with your Big Mac combo, extra large tea. You can't do that in the school, not during lunch, because you're competing with the funds that your child nutrition services, what they're making within the district. So you're competing really with your own district when you allow that to happen. Also, fundraising during instructional time. You cannot do any type of fundraising while you're supposed to be learning. So before school, before students come in the building, or after when the buses roll, and that's free for all, but not during instructional time, during the day. Some schools, I know back in the day, we used to have Coke machines, we used to have vending machines. And at one point, you could just go there at any point and purchase something. And then they scaled it back and they turned the machines off during lunch because you can't compete with child nutrition. A lot of schools now have just turned them off from the beginning of the school day to the end, just because, number one, they're on the health kick where, the sodas are not really healthy. But two, those funds that you're getting, they're actually competing with the district and their child nutrition, especially during lunch. So you're not competing with them. Be involved with the PTSA fundraising. You have to be involved with PTSA regardless, but just make sure you have a handle on the fundraising, because if you notice when PTA does fundraising, they'll say, ABC Middle School, PTSA fundraiser. So what do you see? You see ABC Middle School. So if they're out there doing something, people seeing them putting money in the pockets and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and your name is attached to it, your school's name, that's still on you. You can't say, well, no, I didn't do that. That was my PTSA. You're still the leader of your school and any type of organization that represents your school. So have a, meet with the treasurer for the PTSA, make sure you know what the funding is, what they're doing, what the balance is, and everything that goes along with those types of fundraising. PTSA, even though they're considered their own entity, they must follow all the same procedures and rules as you do in your school for fundraising. It's not different. All money must be receipted. Any money. We have gotten to the point where we're pushing for students to pay through the pay portal online. I love it because we listed whatever the payment should be. If it's HOSA, if it's the Valentine's Day dance, $20, prom, $70. They go right online, pay it online, and then we get a printout. No money is exchanged, no cash money is exchanged. We have the printout. It's easy to give refunds that way. Again, there's no cash money. But if you have to receive cash money, it needs to be receipted. Every person that gives you money needs to have a receipt. You need to have a copy of that receipt. You need to deposit it the same day. I've been at games where, night games, leaving at a high school at 11 o'clock after everybody leaves. And I've had to go to the bank and I had the SRO follow me because we have to deposit those funds at 11 o'clock at the bank. I didn't like that too much, but it just had to be done. And I was the one that was supposed to do it for that particular game. Just make sure you have someone like an SRO or, some type of officer to follow you there. But I did not have the option to take it home and then bright and early Monday morning, or, if it's a Friday night, if they open Saturday, I'll take it Saturday. No, you need to take it that day, deposit it the same day. Any questions about best practices for fundraising?
When we get through with your segment tonight, I'm going to pull up. Every district has a policy on fundraising and financial management. I have one in one of our Zoom session menu items for our classes. I'll show you that one, and you should find the one for your district because every district has one. I'll show you the example.
Okay. All right, and finally, budgeting, accounting, and reporting. This is the summary of everything regarding the financial component of your facilities management. So let's look at budgeting first. You must set your priorities when you're budgeting based on the needs of your school. One school's budget, even with the same amount of money, is going to be different than another school's budget. Money's going to be filtered in different ways, just depending on the needs of the school. Your school improvement plan, that should drive how you budget your money for the next school year. Your school improvement plan, your school improvement team is a reflection of your school community. I have learned that when you allow that team to help make the decisions, you don't get as much pushback as if you sat by yourself and created the entire budget without any type of input. So if you have teachers and you have parents and students that are helping you out, then they are speaking for the masses, and you will find that you have more buy-in. Prior year planning, it is good to look at your past years, bring a couple of years of your budgeting plan back, and then that will help you decide on your new needs for the new year. If you've had a budget for technology each year for $5,000, and you've ended up needing $7,000 or $8,000, where you've had to shift money from other sources to cover that, then you need to probably try to budget closer to what you've seen in the last couple of years. Same thing if you have a budget of $7,000 and you've only spent $4,000 for the last roughly 4,000 for the last few years. You've got 3,000. Where else can you use that money? What's needed in your school for the next year? So that's where you look at your planning before at the end, I guess, during this time of the year, you're planning for your next year. Also, make sure you plan to cover your first month's needs with the funds you already have. Because once your school year starts, those few first days, you will not have money for that particular school year yet. There's something called a PMR that stands for the Principal's Monthly Report that will determine the funding that you will receive. It's based on your attendance, your pupil, the seats, the people that you have in your seats. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So that's your budgeting. Very brief overview of your budgeting. Accounting, this is where you need to have a very, very good and dependable bookkeeper. They're going to track all the money that you spend, what comes in and what goes out. They're in charge of your payroll, when you get new teachers in, where they go within your payroll, your substitutes. In my district, if of course we have a teacher shortage, we have a substitute shortage. Sometimes we cannot get a substitute. If we cannot get a substitute one day, our teachers actually can go into that class during their planning time, and they are the sub for that day. So your bookkeeper at that point will need to know, okay, this teacher needs to be paid sub-pay for that period, because the district says technically your planning period, you're not actively engaged in instruction. So they're allowing you to be paid for that particular period as a sub. So you have to know how to maneuver those funds. Your checking account, of course, is just like your personal checking account. It can, you can overdraw money, you can do everything the same. You don't want to get into that. So you have to make sure your checking account stays balanced each month. Line item software, everything that we do there's a line item for. So we have what we call AS400. Actually, we're about to get a new, thank goodness, a new updated software program that we can pull reports of all of our different funding sources and line items. The bookkeeper and the principal has access to that. That is something that you need to know about, and every few days, especially around this time when the money's, either you're going to spend it, especially your state and federal funds, or you're going to lose it. You need to know what you have in there, what checks have cleared, or what purchase orders have cleared, and what you have left, so that you can spend it. This is April, the money is about to go, it's about to disappear. So you need to know what you have left in those line items, and the software will help you. And then inventory and supplies. You have to maintain all different types of things in your school, from paper. Paper is expensive, and teachers can go through paper really quickly. So you have to kind of monitor your inventory, your pens, your dry erase markers, all of that throughout the year. And then going back to budgeting, look at what you spent one year for all of your supplies, and take an inventory and plan for your next year. Okay, and reporting. Okay, so PMR, the Principal's Monthly Report. This report has several key items within it. It has your average daily membership. Your average daily membership is how many students are enrolled in your school. So once they show up and you count them as here for that first day, they are now in your average daily membership. If they miss 5 days, they're still in your average daily membership, because they're not anywhere else. They don't go to another school, they're yours. And that average daily membership that's your, you need to make sure you get the kids back. If they're 10, 15 days and you haven't seen them, that could lead to being a dropout. You need to make sure you pull them back because they are in your membership and you will have to be responsible for them. Then you have your average daily attendance, ADA. This is the bodies in each seat each day, your daily attendance. Membership last day, that's the MLD. This is the last day of the month, how many students you have. If you have 1,000 students in your school to start, and then September rolls around, at the end of September, it's 997. That means we're expecting that 3 students have withdrawn and hopefully enrolled in another school. If they have not enrolled in another school, guess what? They're still yours. Even if they withdrew, if you can't prove that there's someone somewhere else, especially if you're high school, that's going to be your graduation cohort. That's going to be on that report. They're still yours until they go to another school. Initial enrollment is in there. So just like I just said, if you have 1,000 students, the first day, if you've ever heard of and this is something that your administrators and your Power School data manager will go crazy over. E1, teachers, make sure you E1 the student. Did this student E1 today? The E1, you will always hear E1. That is the number that determines the number of real active students for your ADM. This is your active enrollment. Once the student E1s, they are yours. If they don't E1, then they will not be a part of that, the funding that you get. You get funding based on how many students you E1 that show up that initial day. So we have a social worker. We have 350 students. If on day 10, we have 340, our social worker, probably day 7, has started going to make house calls to get those other students in. We need to have all of them because that's going to determine our money. So at the beginning of the year, your social worker, your counselors are busy pulling in those extra students. Mostly you'll hear about E1s, E2s. That means you have a new student coming into your school from maybe another state. They're coming as a first-time student here in your school system from another state. So they would be considered an E2, but mostly we deal with E1s. Okay, so your audits. When you're reporting, you're going to have to report for fundraising, your ESSER funds. We've always stayed away from gift cards. With the ESSER funds this year, we've been able to utilize gift cards to a certain degree. It's very specific how we can use them, and we have to report. We have to put the last, like we're doing state employees credit union gift cards. We have to have a sheet. We have to report the last 4 digits of that card number, the date we gave it to someone, that student's name, that student's signature. All of that has to be accounted for each gift card. Any type of grants, you have to make sure that you're reporting those. Any types of gifts, they go in a specific line item in your report. And then I put fundraising again up there. Allotment review. So based on your enrollment, that's going to determine in your allotment meeting that principals will have around this time, your number of employees that you will have next school year. So I'm about to have my allotment meeting now, and they're going to look at the students that we've had, the students that are withdrawn, and they're going to determine how many students they think, based on a formula, that I'm going to have next school year. And that's the allotments that I'm going to get for teachers, which is money because they're paying each teacher. So they're using my past membership, student membership, to determine what my future membership will be. So everything has to be tight. Everything has to be in order. Make sure you have a good team working with you, because any of these things out of order can cause big problems for you as a principal. You're not, any of these things right here, you're not going to be able to say, well, no, my bookkeeper, well, no, my counselor, well, no, the PTSA is going to be you. So make sure you're aware of all of these, the budgeting, the accounting process, and reporting. Okay, that is it. Do you all have any questions?
I have a question, 2 questions real quick. I have my principal, this is only her 2nd year, and sometimes she tell me her first year scary stories, last year scary stories. So 2 things. So the end of the year, and we're at that point, and she talks about, like you said, sometimes you have to give the money back. So if you're sitting, and I just want to know, like, as a new principal, if you're sitting at the end of the year with 20 and 30,000 and you're like, we got to just spend this money because, you know, like, how do you just, is that a good, if you're sitting that high at the end, was that well done, or should that be the case, or how do you, and then you're at the end trying to rush and just buy anything?
Yeah.
Is that just,
So I'm wondering if there were conversations between her and her bookkeeper,
yeah,
not putting anything on any one person over another, but one of the bookkeeper's jobs is to maintain and manage. So the principal needs once a month to go to the bookkeeper. Okay, so let's look at our money. How much do we have? Where do we have it at? When do we have to spend this amount? Mine has told me, okay, this is the line item for this. We have to spend it by this date. This is the line item for this. We've got to spend this by this date. So I know. And then she's good at reminding me, because you can get busy. You have a lot of other things to do. She won't let it roll to the last few weeks before and have $30,000 left. That's where you're early on, your school improvement team, if she doesn't really have the time to sit and be like, okay, so what do I need? Where do I need? Take it to the school improvement team. They will spend that money, and they will spend it wisely, because they're in the trenches. They're the teachers and the students. They know what they need in their own classroom. Allow them to help you spend it. But yeah, it gets kind of sticky when you have that amount of money, because you of course you don't want it to just disappear and go away, and that's what will happen. So you are stuck with you know, trying to find things at the last minute.
right. And that, you answer my second question which is how often should you meet with your bookkeeper? Because that was one thing I wanted to know what that looks like.
Elementary school once a month, high school every week.
Okay.
And middle school somewhere in between. Now, as somebody who supervised principals in the central office, here's 2 things that I would ask at evaluation time at the end of the year. How did that money help kids this year if you didn't spend it till the end of the year and the stuff didn't show up till over the summer? How did that money, how did it help your kids this year? That money was for them this year. How did it help them? Well, it didn't. Well, then why should I give it back to you again next year? So you did not want to have that conversation with me, that you waited till the end of the year and you had that much money left, and then you didn't spend it on your kids. It sat in the bank all year, and well, it'll help the kids next year. But it wasn't next year's money. We expected you to help this year's teachers and kids with it. How'd that work out for you? Well, it didn't. Well, then we don't need that money next year. We don't have to worry about you not spending it next year, because you won't get it. Now, on ADM and ADA, please remember, doesn't matter how many you got on the roll, your absenteeism is subtracted when they send the state money every month. Remember, the state does not send the $8,000 up front per pupil. They send it in 10 monthly installments of $800, but they subtract the absentee rate. So not only do those absent kids count against your graduation or your cohort rate, and they shouldn't be out there rolling around if they're less than 16 anyway, because you're going to get in trouble. you better find out where they are, but you better find out and get them back to school, because every day they're not there, you don't get paid for them, even though they're on your roll. And you talking about can cost you teachers in your allotment. They'll, and again, you don't want to have to meet with me at the end of the year and explain why your absentee rate was that high and you didn't do anything about it, how much money we lost as a district because of that. Now, again, as I said, let me share my screen, and it'll take me a second to find it, but it won't take me but a second. Here's your assessment inventory that goes along with tonight. This is time to do that. It's under week 2 or week 10, Zoom session 2 or 10, your assessment inventory to assess the safety of your facility. Make sure that you get that done. We've already talked about our next week, Easter, then case study 4 when we come back. All right, so let's look under Zoom session. Okay. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Again, here's your checklist under 10. 11. Here we go. 12. Under 12, we're going to talk more about budgets in a couple weeks, but under school budget laws, I've got this pulled out for you separately. I've got all the state laws on budgeting, but I've got some local things too, and how you have to handle money. But I also under this have CMS board policies on how you have, but right here, your district will have rules on fundraising. Approved by the principal, according to the regulations, shall submit during the first month. Fundraising activities has to be in the budget. The following fundraising activities are recommended to encourage community club, class, dances, car wash, barbecues, concerts, films, student faculty games. The use of instructional time for fundraising shall not take place without approval by the principal, and you will not get that approved by the person. What Dr. Griffin Jordan said was instruction-related activities such as auto mechanics, tailoring, cosmetology shall not be used because it competes with the local businesses. Pre-numbered tickets, for ball games, reconciliation, night deposits, here's what funds can be used for. And so your district will spell it out to you exactly on your fundraising. And now, Dale's soapbox on fundraising. There's 2 types of fundraising, and you need to understand the difference in them. There's events that you do that you make money off of that are community type events. You've got a talent show, a ball game, or something like that. That's okay. You can assign teachers to work those. They're after school hours. That's good. There's also things that are just fundraising, like selling fruit, selling wrapping paper, selling candy. You should never involve teachers in those. Never. Never involve teachers in those. And here's why. Who pays teachers? State does, not you. You can have them work in events where you raise money for your school, but you should not have them out selling candy and doing those things because you don't pay their salary. And you can get into some real trouble about their duties if you just have them out raising money. They'll grievance you over things like that. And it's hard to explain why you've got teachers out on their personal time raising money for you, selling candy or wrapping paper or doing something like that. Clubs and organizations, if they're doing that. So you got to be real careful with that. Again, you can't use teachers during the instructional day because, again, the state paid their salary that day. And then you take them to raise money for you locally at your school. That's a bad trade. The state paid you're probably only bringing in $1 for every 100 you're spending in salary, number one. But number two, you're not paying the salary. The state's paying the salary. That's why they say no fundraising during the day. And it's even iffy if you have them after their regular teaching duties, just to do fundraisers where you're selling something. It's okay to have them involved in activities that generate funds like ball games and things like that, but it's not good. You can lose in court on that. I can tell you, because I have as a district. If you have teachers and you're requiring them to sell stuff, you did not pay their salary. That's not a best practice. And if it gets challenged in court over fair labor practices, and that, where teachers complaining that you're making them work beyond their duty time, you'll lose that one. That is not a fair labor practice. You can require them to come and do a ball game, but you can't require them to sell candy after hours. You got to be careful with that stuff. Again, fair labor. You'll get hit with a fair labor practices lawsuit, and you'll lose. I'll just tell you that right now. You'll lose. That's been established in court. That's why it says don't do it. So again, it's okay to have teachers supervise ball games where you're making money. It's okay to have them do after school activities where that there's an activity and you profit from it. That's okay, but not to be selling stuff. Just as a fundraiser, we need money. Let's sell fruit. Let's sell candy. Let's sell wrapping paper. Let's sell whatever. No. And your trades, cosmetology, carpentry, they shouldn't be raising money of any kind. They shouldn't even be doing fundraisers because that can get misconstrued. And again, you're getting in 95% of those will be federal. And you don't misspend federal money but one time. Got to be real careful with that. So fundraising is, people say it's a necessary evil. I just say it's an evil. I don't think it's necessary. There's just way too much bad stuff that can happen for just general, let's go out and raise money. Activities that raise money are fine. You should get involved with those things, but not just, I want money, how can we get it? There is a difference, there is a distinction, and there is a difference in those two types of fundraisers. One of them you should not be involved in at all. The other, if you're doing activities that'll bring you some money in, that's okay. And you won't get into fair labor standards practices either. When somebody gets mad because they don't want to have to do it, you won't get into that. So that's just, I've got scars on me from that. So that's a word to the wise. Questions, comments that you have tonight? Dr. Griffin Jordan, as always, wonderful presentation. Excellent. You heard it from the horse's mouth, not in terms of she's out there in the trenches every day doing this. This is real. These are the things that, from her perspective as a principal, she highlighted the things tonight that you better do and not better do. And that's the most important thing. Nobody's trying to scare you, but this is grown people talk here. You got to know this stuff or it won't go well for you. Money is, nothing in the building is as tight as how money is spent. And excellent advice, as we talked about in the OMA, the school improvement team who sets the school improvement plan should be involved in the budget. You get much better buy-in if you do that. That's why in OMA Task 1, you were asked to speak to that. Does your school make sure that they involve those people? And your master schedule should reflect those priorities set by your, not only your budget, again, it's a triangle, the budget and the master schedule support that school improvement plan. If you're not doing that and you're out there on your own, like the Lone Ranger on your own, it's not going to go well for you. You got to have buy-in. And that's what we're talking about. And again, if you don't spend your money during the year on the things that you were supposed to spend it on to benefit the teachers and the kids that year, you won't get it next year. You won't have to worry about having a surplus next year. Because the person in charge of you will be sure to see to that. I can tell you. And that's not a hard message to deliver. It wasn't for me. You had money to help these kids. You didn't. Your punishment is you don't get it again. I'll bet when I give you more next time, you'll do the right thing with it. You'll be paying attention to that money. All right. Anybody have anything for the good of the group before we go? We don't get to see you for 2 weeks. Remember, case study 4 is due. It's a bear. Make sure you hit all parts of it. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Everybody have a good evening, good week,
Bye.
good holiday. Bye-bye. Thank you again, Dr. Griffin Jordan.